This IBM X346 eServer from the early 2000s looks pretty mundane, but it's got a few tricks up its sleeve. It's been blessed by the IBM gods to run a card that lets you control it, even if it's running Windows, from an IBM I server. Today we're going to see if this thing is healthy. It isn't. We'll be doing some surgery to get it fired up. And try to get Windows Server 2003 installed on it. I'll go over some future IBM plans I have for it, but in the meantime we'll get something called IBM Director installed on it. IBM Director lets you control a fleet of machines from a central server. Today we'll get the server software installed on a compact DL380 Gen 2 running Windows 2000 and install the agent software on this IBM X346. It's a surprisingly slick setup, letting you fully control the agent machine from the central server, transfer files, and do all sorts of stuff. We're going to do a deep dive on this thing, see what it's all about, and actually use some real software on it. Let's get into it. On the bench today, I've got an IBM xSeries 346 Enterprise server. It's from the early 2000s, so it still holds the eServer branding that IBM was using to get on top of the internet craze. And they called their x86 line of servers xSeries. This one's a 346, sporting a single Intel Xeon inside, but there is room for two. This one in particular was manufactured December 18th of 2004, and it is officially FRU, Field Replaceable Unit, 26K4759. Before we go any further, I suspect we're going to encounter a lot of acronyms in this video. IBM's pretty big on that. So I'll be introducing one of my own, the IBM Collab Retro Acronym Counter, ICAC for short. Every time we encounter an IBM acronym, I'll throw a counter on the screen, and we'll see what we've got at the end of the video. And let me get this out of the way. I know the difference between an acronym and an initialism. Technically speaking, an acronym is something you say out loud. So for example, NASA, the National Aeronautics Space Administration. You say NASA. NASA is an acronym. NFL, on the other hand, the National Football League, is an initialism. You don't say NIFL, you just say NFL. And I'm here to tell you, I understand there is a difference, and I do not care. I'm going to call them all acronyms. And I believe in this very short time, we've already got the ICAC count up to 2. So you might ask, why buy a mundane early 2000s IBM x86 server like this? Well, on the one hand, if I had the resources and the space, I would buy every server I could find pre-2010. And in fact, I'm well on my way. Believe it or not, all this stuff in the rack is like a third of the servers I own. But this one is special. It is one of a handful of X-Series servers of the time that IBM allowed IXA cards to be installed in. This is an IXA card, Integrated X-Series Adapter Card, and it's going to take a little explaining to get the point across as to why this thing is interesting and why it's really cool that this one can accept it. In the bottom of the retro rack in the other room that I was just showing you, I've got a Power 6 machine, and it's running IBM I. IBM I is a fascinating operating system, fully integrated with the hardware that it runs on. The classic example I like to use is Costco. Still runs on IBM I. If you're really careful and you're walking around Costco, you will see IBM I terminal screens. IBM I is still in very heavy use in many industries, I suspect in the government especially. I think I was reading that Walmart also still uses IBM I for inventory control. This video is not necessarily about IBM I, but is a step in my IBM I journey, because with this IXA card, the IBM I machine can control this X-Series x86 server. The gist of it is, the guys that built the IBM I stuff, which used to be called AS400, they thought Windows was a silly little toy. And maybe they were right, I don't know. In the mid-90s through today, Windows machines were taking off, especially after Windows NT came out. So their thinking was, if you're going to have all these Windows NT servers that you're trying to manage, you might as well manage them centrally from an AS400 machine or IBM I machine. And the way you might be able to do that is with one of these. So you can plug this thing in to a Windows machine and manage a ton of different things about it. I think you could deal with users, and definitely you could attach hard disks from the big IBM I machines over this special link here that we'll go over, and allow access to the disks here. I'm still a little in the dark about how this all works, but I want to get this happening, and buying this server was one step in that direction, and we're going to see if this thing works today. Let's talk about this a little bit. We're about to get cooking with the ICAC count. So we've got various ports on here, each with their own acronym. To explain the acronyms I'm about to throw at you for these various connectors, we have to do a very brief history lesson. I promise it'll be quick. In the late 80s, IBM had two lines of business machines that they were coming out with, the AS400 and the RS6000. These eventually merged, and today they're just called IBM on Power. And by merged, I mean they merged the hardware architecture and both operating system flavors. On one side, you've got more conventional stuff like Linux and IBM's Unix called AIX. And on the other side, you've got IBM I, which is a totally unique, different beast. But they're running on what they call IBM Power. But that wasn't always the case. So you had the RS6000 and you had the AS400. And apparently, they had different names for this connector. This is an HSL2, High-Speed Link 2 connector, also known as RIO2, or Remote Input Output 2. Identical connector, identical technology, two different acronyms, which I think is pretty wild even by IBM standards. So this thing goes in an x86 xSeries machine that has been blessed as allowed to run it. I don't know how serious that is, but knowing IBM, I suspect you can't just pop this in any old xSeries from the line. It's got to be the ones that have been blessed firmware-wise to run these. That's just an assumption on my part from reading the documentation. And so you hook this bad boy up to one of those power machines over in the other room over a HSL loop. So when the server's over there, you're going to have something like this, an HSL card that can accept one of these cables, and you form a link, a loop. So one of these goes to here, the other one goes to here, and you daisy chain other devices along the high-speed link loop. It is a proprietary IBM way of connecting devices, basically. I think an analogy could be it's like PCI over a cable. I guess that's one way to look at it. And now we have to do a little history lesson about myself. I actually got into all this power IBM P6, iSeries, IBM I stuff because of the machine this card came in. 3 years ago, I saw a Craigslist listing that had a compact DL380 Gen 2 in there. So my buddy and I drove like an hour north, got into this storage unit, and this guy had a ton of stuff. And I saw this IBM Power 5 machine, had no idea what it was, grabbed it. This card was in there, and I grabbed a ton of cables that I thought were SCSI cables. A lot of them were SCSI, but also in the pile were the HSL cables I need that plug into this thing. And so this whole time, for years, I've been thinking about, this thing is really weird. I'd like to use it for some reason. I have the cables. I have one of the cards. And then I learned about the IXA. And so I thought, man, I've already got these cables. I've already got one of these. I'm good to go. So I bought that. And then I bought this server. But just tonight, as I was pulling all this gear out, getting ready to make a video about this thing, I noticed something. So these cables here, which are pretty serious, by the way, I think they're 10 feet long, they plug in to this no problem. And they've got this pretty asinine setup where you got to pull that, which probably makes sense, except I know for sure that's going to break, and then I'm never going to be able to get that thing out of there. If you're familiar with all this, and you notice that I said HSL2 over here, I've got a big problem. This connector on my card is slightly bigger than these connectors right here. And these cables are for this card. This is HSL, which I am now going to count as another acronym, aka RIO. This is HSL2, aka RIO2. So yeah, I gotta buy another set of cables. I gotta buy another HSL2 card for my power machines in there. And that's where we're at. So I thought I was cruising, buying all the right stuff. Nope. That's the older, slower version of HSL. This is the newer, faster version of HSL. But to round out the ICAC count, this is the SPCN port, the System Power Control Network port. There's a port on the back of the Power 6 running IBM I that you plug this into. And then we've got the ASM port, the Advanced System Management port. That plugs into the back of this thing. And as you can see on the back of the server, we've got two ASM ports. I believe that lets you access, and by you, I mean IBMi, the system management card on this thing, which is called a Remote Supervisor Adapter 2. IBM has not turned that into an acronym. Over the course of this video, if I find that they do, we will bump up the ICAC count. But we're still going to do something interesting with this machine today. What just broke? I don't think it actually broke. Chloe, did it break? Chloe's here now. So, so one of the rack mount pieces was hanging off the edge here. This thing. And then I pulled the machine and broke it. Chloe, let's have a look. So it's got these little levers, and for some reason, mine was hanging down or something. It doesn't look broken. She's very helpful. Chloe, that's my pointing tool. You can have that, I guess. Let's see if I can figure out what I did here. So this was here. Now it just kind of falls out. And I broke this piece off. I'm going to compare it to the other side, because this is probably a pretty boring video at this point. I think I know what happened. So there's some sort of spring keeping this one up. And these are both of the pieces I have. And they don't want to stay up. And so I think what happened is this was hanging out, and then I moved the machine past the bench and popped this out. Anyway, I dropped that piece. It's fine. Onward. So the plan with this thing today is we're going to have a look around. We'll look at the front, the back, we'll open it up, see what's going on inside. We'll try to access the remote management card that's in there. That's always a fun time. And then we'll probably get Windows 2003 installed on it. And then I want to try out something called IBM Director. It's like a poor man's IBMi plus IXA card scenario. And I'll install the IBMi Director server on a Windows 2000 machine I've got in the rack. We'll install the IBMi Director agent on this. We should be able to remotely manage it. I think it should be cool. Should be terrible, but hopefully fun. Right, big dog? She's not going to be a lot of help. I'm going to go slightly out of order, and we're going to go right in, and I'll show you something kind of interesting. So there's this latch, pushes the lid back, lid comes off, and down in here is another IXA card, just like the one I had been showing you. That's one of the reasons I bought this machine. I knew that this particular machine variant is, allowed to have these or supports this card, but this one came with one, meaning it was used in this way. That's going to be relevant for the rest of my analysis. On the front, we've got a DVD-ROM, a floppy, and then this thing, the Light Path Diagnostics. Look at all those acronyms. We're not going to actually count those. Actually, we are. One of them. DASD. DASD stands for Direct Access Storage Device. That is IBM's way of saying a hard drive. But this thing will tell you if there's any issues physically with the machine. It'll light up one of these lights. So you got PCI problems, memory problems, whatever. It's actually pretty useful. And then over here we've got 6 3.5-inch SCSI drive bays for hard drives, DASDs, I guess. And they're all blanked out, which is fine. But I started panicking, actually, before I even started filming this video earlier tonight, because I was realizing it's no problem that there's no drive. I've got plenty of SCSI drives, but I need a tray to put said SCSI drive in. So I pulled out the old box of IBM drive sleds. Quite a few in here. And most of what I have are these. These are for the power systems. They're the same height, of course. And they look the same as this vintage, but they don't slide in, and typically, this one is incomplete, as you can tell. They like to fall apart. They take the SCSI drive in and convert it to this proprietary IBM backplane situation, so obviously that's not what's going on in here. Well, I guess it might not be obvious to you. Down in there, this thing just wants normal SCSI connector. Got an Ultra 3 SCSI drive here, and it just wants to connect right to the backplane. That's the type of sled I'm going to need. So I was starting to panic because I thought I only had these P6 style sleds, but then I found a few of these, and they are the right style. So the blanks, you can see, have this kind of edge coming out, almost like a Sun Spud style sled. And these are the same ones. And they've even got eServer drives in them. I have no memory of where I got these. I don't know if I bought them on eBay, pulled them from another machine. We got some parts floating around from some other sleds. We've got 3 of them. They're all the same. They're eServer xSeries 36.4 gig drives, IBM tray option, 10,000 RPM SCSI drives. So yeah, we're back in action. Here's a pretty typical Sun Microsystems sled. They're called Spuds, but it's just a sled. Drive tray of the time. This one's a little banged up, but that's fine. But you'll see, if we flip them around, the Sun style sled is just a U-shaped, attaches to the drive, and the drive itself connects to the back plane. And the IBM one is an O, I guess you could say. The drive is fully enclosed, and they've taken the same connector on the back of the drive and reproduced it here. And then they threw their logo on it, of course. And it's accomplishing the exact same thing, just with way more material. I suspect this probably plugs in better or seats better or something, but yeah, this is a better design. It requires none of this crap on the back. But the good news is, I think it's going to work. So let's put it in slot 0. This 36 gig drive. Am I upside down? There we go. Let's throw 2 of them in there. I don't know what the RAID controller situation inside the machine is. We're going to find out out pretty soon. Yeah. Oh, this one is kind of broken. Let's see if this third one's any better. I don't know what the story is with these drives. I don't even know why I own them. There you go. Ideally, if there's a RAID controller on here, we'll just RAID them together, just for fun. I think that's the hard drive situation sorted out, so I'll put the rest of my blanking plates in. And the reason I showed you that IXA card before showing you the outside of the machine is I found it very odd that this thing had no hard drives, but all the blanking plates. It's really common that you buy these enterprise servers and the drives have been pulled. That's not weird, but what I would expect is that the drives that were in there would have been pulled and there would have been blank slots. It's very weird to find all 6 blanking plates included with the machine. So that kind of implies to me that some sort of like net booting situation was taking place. This thing never had drives, like by design. That coupled with the IXA card, like maybe there is a way to fully net boot these off of the IBM I machine. I'm not sure. That's my guess. Taking a look inside, we've got the bank of fans here. They are hot swappable and removable, of course. And they're not, I mean, I was about to say they're not that dirty. They are kind of dirty. Maybe I'll pull all these and hit them with the paintbrush real quick. Okay, got them all dusted off a little bit anyway. Pretty interesting clip and spring mechanism on these things. There's a pretty strong spring that's always pushing down. And when you push it in there, obviously some sort of plastic latches keep it there. So that's kind of weird. It helps you take it out, which is nice, but I'm guessing it's constantly providing tension so that the fans don't rattle, maybe? That would be my best guess. Oh, also I realized there's a whole nother bank. These are also fan slots, like the exact same type. So you could get this provisioned with more fans, or I'm missing half of mine? I don't know. This does seem like enough for this machine, but maybe certain processors ran really hot. Maybe you're supposed to do both banks if you have 2 CPUs. I only have 1 in here. On this air baffle, it does label all the fans and their numbers. Hopefully I'm not supposed to have all those, otherwise it's going to be real mad when we boot it up. This thing just pops out. In here I've got a single Xeon processor and a blank for what could be another one. I don't know what processor it is specifically. We'll find that out when we boot it up. And down in here I've got 2 sticks of RAM. Not much of it. 2 sticks of 512 megabyte PC2 ECC RAM. I wonder if I've got some more somewhere. Not quite. I have a bunch more 512 meg sticks, but they're the wrong speed. This thing wants PC2 3200. These are PC2 4200R. So that's not going to work for us. We'll forge ahead with 1 gig. Over here we've got a riser for what look like half-height PCI cards. Not seeing, maybe it just pulls up. Oh, there. This little latch lets it loose, so that comes out like that. Pretty typical. I've never powered this machine on, but I did briefly dive in and take a look at some parts in a Patreon video, so if you like behind the scenes type stuff like that, subscribing to the Patreon might be something you'd be interested in. This thing has a big lever, and it slides out like that. The massive IXA card. You don't have to necessarily have an IXA card in here. This is just the drive cage for full height, full length PCI cards. And this one has the cage add-on because those cables, they're going to be a little smaller than these, but you can imagine that's going to add a lot of strain to the back of the machine and hurt the cable and the connector. So they usually have these extra cages you would buy. Oh, and technically, because of the era we're in, these are PCI X slots. That cool looking blue card down in there is the IBM Remote Supervisor Adapter 2 Slimline. Really rolls off the tongue. It's got a power PC, of course. This is the remote management card, if I'm understanding things correctly. And it's kind of weird because it's got a button on it on the front, a USB port, some LEDs that obviously you wouldn't be able to see when the machine's running. Everything's closed up. I think I'd really like to get a closer look at it, but also not break it. How does this work? I'm going to do this very carefully off camera. I'll be back. It just took a little gentle persuasion to get it out of its edge connector there. Probably never been taken out since the day it was put in. This thing is sweet. I wanted to get a closer look at it. Underneath the IBM logo, we've got what I believe is the state of North Carolina. So that's probably where this was designed. Oh, and look at this. We've got the engineer and the designer's names. Engineer was James Delton and the designer was Jeff Davis. That's pretty cool. It's got the PowerPC 405 GP. Nothing of note on the back other than a very beautiful looking board. It's got some connectors on it. One little connector here full of dust. And then I was showing you we've got a couple LEDs, a push button, and a USB port. Either used during development or programming it. You can tell I haven't looked at the manual yet. But yeah, I wanted to pull this out. This is such a cool looking board. Actually, now I'm remembering. A Patreon viewer, Grainbread, when I posted a sneak peek of this machine on Patreon, mentioned that that USB port is for connecting to a PCI adapter. Some servers required this or something. So yeah, that it had a real use case there. It wasn't just for development. Do you think IBM board designers, that were building stuff like this for IBM equipment were like mandated to use PowerPC back in the day? And IBM was producing them. So, I mean, PowerPCs are good. I'm sure it's a reasonably good experience to develop on. Now there is obviously an onboard SCSI controller because there's its plug, and obviously we have SCSI drives up here. And I was reading in the documentation it does support RAID, so I can create a RAID out of these drives if I want to, which I do. The only other thing of note we need to look at in here before we look at the back and then power this thing on is this weird guy right here. That is apparently a spot for an IBM ServerGuide. No new acronyms yet. RAID doesn't count. That's an industry standard thing. I found this ServerGuide presentation online from one John S. Fitzgerald, the worldwide product manager, and he's pretty thorough. I suspect this document was to sell these things. Yeah, they're positioning against HP Compaq, Dell. Based on what I'm seeing, for not too much more money than the other guys, you can get 256 megs of battery-backed RAID goodness. And this is what it looks like. Kind of looks like a memory chip. It goes into that slot I was just showing you. And evidently it is a pretty capable RAID controller. And it's definitely supported on this server, X346 here. I meant to buy one of these on eBay. They are on eBay, but I was kind of trying to figure out exactly which one I needed. And I forgot to buy it in time for this video. So that'll be a fun follow-up. And he's got this useful diagram of it plugging into the system planar. So yeah, that's a little fun piece of IBM server trivia for you. They apparently were making these integrated RAID controllers that could give you more functionality than the onboard ones, and they looked like RAM sticks. Kind of cool. I'm going to get this all put back together, and I'll show you the back ports, and then we'll power it on. I've never done one of those fancy transitions before. I think that went pretty well. Nothing too surprising around back, but the serial port, PS2 mouse and keyboard, VGA, 2 network ports, 2 USB ports, the system management port, so that little blue card I was showing you, I think we can connect over a network to it. We'll try that out. The IXA card getting in the way here, those mystery ASM 1 and 2 ports, and one of them has a plug that doesn't look easy to get out, so I'm going to leave it in there. And then SCSI, so you can connect a disk shelf or whatever peripherals. I only have one power supply, but it does support dual. This was a pretty bare bones build, I think. It does have a little message in here about airflow, so you're going to want this little placeholder, which is ridiculously overbuilt. I think a little plastic would have sufficed. Look at this thing. My goodness. Wow. Might be the most impressive part of this machine. Jeez. I think we're ready. I'm realizing I don't really have a plan after this. I think we'll mess around with the remote management card for a little bit, and then we'll try to get Windows, some copy of Windows installed on this thing. So, might not start. No signs of life whatsoever. Is this plugged in? It is. That's concerning. I would expect at least a little something going on. I'm telling you right now, this is not a good sign. Let's try to power it on. It is totally dead. Uh-oh. Let me mess around a little bit. We might have a problem. A power supply problem. And I've only got one of them. The very first cap I looked at has some crust growing on it right there. I think we've got a bad power supply. I am going to try to get in here to assess what exactly is going on, and in my experience, it's typically a huge pain to get these enterprise power supplies apart, so I'll be back in a little bit, and hopefully we can have a look and see if there's something obviously wrong. I'm pretty sure the cap I was showing you has blown at the very least. Yeah, that is not looking good. Oh boy. So this one has some crap coming out of it. This one is also bulging. They're Nishikans too, that's a shame. That's what they're supposed to look like. Everything else seems fine. I haven't dug too deep, to be fair, but the rest of it seems okay. Yep, we got a bad power supply, of course, on the one server that comes with one power supply. This also wasn't my most graceful work. Took a bunch of screws out and then tried to pull this lid up and instantly mangled the connectors that all I had to do was slide them out. So I gotta fix those. I gotta fix this power supply. I've been bamboozled. This was sold as working. They even had pictures of the BIOS and it booting, but there's nothing they could do about that capacitor being on its last leg, so not too salty about that. I also feel better. In the listing, they did specifically note that the left button here was busted, so it was hanging out, and I mean, I made it worse, but it was already broken. So where am I going to get some capacitors for this thing? I do have that IBM server that I use as wall art. It's functional. Sometimes I power it up. There will be a follow-up video on that server. That was a 3-parter, absolute nightmare. It works though. It might have the same power supply. It's quite a bit newer though. I'm going to climb up there and check. As expected, different power supplies in that one. That one has 2. So I would have liked to have gotten this video out this week, but that's not looking good. It'll take forever to order caps. More power supplies on the way from eBay, of course. Instantly bought 2 more. I suppose I can look around, see if I've got some of these caps on a donor board I can steal from. The 2 clearly bad ones are 2200 microfarad 10 volt caps. That's what I'm trying to hunt down. Here's an old Aztec, I think, power supply I've got kicking around. That cap right there is one of the ones we need, but I only have 1. So there's 1 that maybe we could throw in there. And then I've got this failed power supply from one of the Power 5 machines, those big guys in the rack. It's got to be loaded with caps, right? So we'll look in here. This one was shockingly easy to get into, and I think I know why it stopped working. See that pin sticking out right there? That plugs in to this board here to connect the 2 pieces, and it was just loose. I don't even think that was soldered in. Well, I mean, it was at one point, but yeah. That's one mystery solved. I don't need this thing anymore anyway. It's not been very fruitful so far. There are caps hiding down in here, so I'm going to try to read what those are and see if it's worth pulling this board the rest of the way out. It's always interesting going in these things and seeing markings, you know, handwritten by a human that was verifying, you know, various aspects of the assembly and quality control. I'm like an archaeologist. Continued with the disassembly, and wouldn't you know it, a 10 volt 2200 microfarad Rubicon cap. Exactly what we need. I suspect these 2 behind it are the same exact thing. I'm gonna get these out of here. I'll do some additional checks. I'm not an expert in this stuff, so once we pull these out, we'll see what what the deal is and if I can actually use them as a replacement. We're after these three guys right here. Got the iron heating up. Could this be my finest hour? Will I actually fix something instead of just buying replacement parts? Also, these Hako irons are the best. Game changer if you're a total soldering novice like me. We'll get the good luck charm out here. We're gonna need it. They bent the legs over after they soldered them instead of clipping them off, which is advantageous in my scenario here because there will be a little leg left on each cap, which is good. So I'll get these all straightened out. The general idea is that you're going to want to add solder before you try to desolder. So we'll get some fresh stuff mixed in with the old here. And this is probably not going to be easy, if I'm being honest. I also can't really get underneath very well anyway to pull the cap while I'm trying to desolder each of its legs. So yeah, I don't know how much of this I'm going to fully do on camera. I suspect there's a lot of stuff these are connected to that's going to make it really hard to actually accomplish this, but we'll see. Probably not going to film a ton of this because I don't want to get a bunch of crap from you guys about how bad I am at it. Yeah, this is going to suck. I can tell you that much. Chloe is not in here, by the way, so don't worry about that. Forgot I have this bitchin' flux that I bought. That didn't work. Let's get some flux in the situation. Oh, did it harden? Oh no. There we go. We're gonna flux these up. The first extraction didn't go so well. One of the legs ripped off, but we're learning. Got 2 more attempts here. So here's the one I just bungled. 2 more caps to try. All this stuff was in the way, and I didn't realize it while I was pulling with my pliers. So I did have the leg free, but the cap couldn't move anymore. Yeah, anyway. Let's try again. It wasn't pretty, but I did get 2 of them out successfully. But I don't have a lot of length to work with on the legs here, so that might be a problem depending on the leg spacing on the ones we're going to try to replace. It's time to get serious. I think you know what this is. The Hako FR301 desoldering gun. I'm a real YouTuber now. After how these went, I decided on the board I actually care about, I'm not doing that ever again. We'll bring in the real guns. I gotta figure out how to use it though. I was reading that you're supposed to put solder on it before you put it away, after you clean it. So it's got this little, while it's hot, you kind of get in there, free that up before you put it away, and then you dab a little solder on it. And sure enough, from the factory, it has some on there. Let me get this all set up. Both irons are heating up. It says you heat this up for about a minute, clean the tip like you normally would, and then apply some solder before you attempt to desolder. See if I was going to run the vacuum, but I don't know if it's hot enough yet. I'm going to practice on this little whatever board that I bought from RePC over a decade ago to practice soldering with. I think it was like 50 cents. Here's all my previous practicing I've done over the years with the pump. We're going to get real serious now. I think we're going to try to take out this big old resistor here. It's working. I got some fresh solder on the tip, like they said I should. I've marked the pins of that resistor. So we'll flow in. This stuff's really old, as I recall. It takes quite a bit of heat to flow new stuff in on this board. My very first attempt here. I'm all shaky. Oh yeah. I'm never going back. Holy crap. That was so easy. It's like cheating. You see YouTube videos where these guys are really good with the hand pump and stuff. This one's really crappy. There are better ones, I just don't have one. But still, you start to think, do I not know what I'm doing? Well, it doesn't matter if you get one of these. I need to figure out how to get deeper into this and not break anything, because we're going to need the underside, obviously, to get rid of these crusty caps here. And it doesn't look like it's going to be a whole lot of fun, so I'll be back in a little bit. Getting there, there were 3 screws on the board to the bottom plate. You had to take off this grounding strap screw here. A bunch of screws on the back fan assembly, and there's a sneaky little screw down in here that needs to come out. This might be the last one. I mean, I have full access to the back of the board right off the bat. I was marking the wrong pins. This one and this one, that one and that one. But we'll do this one first because I can for sure see those are the right pins. Even with the soldering iron, this is going to suck a little bit. I'm not really set up to film this sort of thing. I'm also nearsighted, so I have to take my glasses off when I'm looking at the board, and then I can't see anything else. But we're going to give it a shot here. I think I got it. Let me clean the tip. Yeah, I think that made pretty quick work of that. Man, this thing is incredible. I mean, I knew it was cool. I've seen it on YouTube forever, but... All right. That's one down. I'll get the other one out. We'll have a look at them. Well, I don't know if they're the actual problem or the only problem with this power supply, but I can say one thing. They're definitely not doing too hot. So that one had the crust coming off of it, and it's bulging, of course. You can't really tell, but that one's definitely bulging as well, especially compared to a normal-looking one. These are Nishikon 2200 microfarad 10-volt caps. My replacements are the identical specification. You can go up in voltage. These happen to be identical. And the only other thing to make sure of is that I put them in the same orientation. So where this strip was, that's where that needs to go. Well, it isn't perfect, but it was never going to be. I was a little worried, so here's one of the caps I just replaced. I was using a pretty big chisel on my iron. That's the one I like to use. I probably should have downsized because I was making a mess of these vias. Flux and more solder cleaned them up, but they're all on the same connection. So like all these little vias are connected to each other, including the pin they're next to on the cap. So same with this story right here. So I think it's going to be okay. Pretty good opportunity to fix these little clips I mangled. I'll straighten those back out while I can. It went back together without too much of a fight. Unfortunately, I don't really have a definitive way to test the health of these caps and the new ones I just put in there, for that matter. But that's fine. This was pretty fun. I'm not really holding my breath, but these were obviously bad, and the ones I put in there look a lot better. And this thing was great. I needed this in my life. Things have been like stressful and busy and hectic, and this just brought me a lot of joy, even if that doesn't work. So let's get it back in the machine. After a brief detour, we're back here. Power supply's in. I'm not holding my breath. I'm sort of expecting nothing to happen. I've also got 2 more coming on eBay, so. It's on. We have at least partially fixed it. The fan on the power supply is running. And we got a blinking light on the front panel. I'm in shock. Let's boot it up. Oh! Oh, it's a little loud. Yeah, there we go. Screen just came to life. We did it. Wouldn't it be funny if those hard drives had something on them? Yeah, this seems really healthy. We are posting. Hear those drives spinning up? They don't sound that good, but they're pretty old. Detected both drives, 36 gig. That's a pretty good sign. Missing operating system. No surprises there. Here's the really good news. No lights on the diagnostics panel. That means, at least so far, it thinks everything about the system is doing just fine. Amazing. I fixed something for once. Don't know how long the fix will last, but that's okay. I need to go do a little reading. I want to mess with the remote management, if we can. I think we'll have to get on a network. In that very early post screen with the splash screen there, I think we can get in there and maybe configure it somehow. I'm not entirely sure. I'm going to go read some documentation. Remember our friend, the Remote Supervisor Adapter 2, that blue card? Found an IBM xSeries technical conference presentation from Jason Brunson and Bob Zuber in 2004. And guess what? They referred to it as an RSA II, another acronym. You know what that means. IBM just can't help themselves. They hoard acronyms like a dragon hoards gold. If you'll recall, there is a network port on the back of this thing called System Management. I think the RSA II connects to that. The documentation for the RSA card, I'm actually glad it has an acronym. I think it was a mouthful. Will default to DHCP. If it can't find a DHCP host, it will default itself to 192.168.70.125. I have a feeling this thing has been used before. I haven't looked into factory reset, but let's get it on a network and see if it reaches out for DHCP. That would be awesome. Fired up the RetroRec network. That's what we're going to plug this thing into. And I'm asking the router for the current DHCP leases it knows about. And it's got something handed out. Now I'm going to power that thing on. And I could turn on debugging logging here and stuff. Maybe we will if we have to. Hopefully it just reaches out and this thing gives it an IP on my 10.0.0 network. Got it going into the RetroRack network. My power supply still works. That's exciting. Oh, the machine is on. I didn't really want it to turn all the way on, but it did. So while we're here, we'll wait for that post screen to come up and see if we can see anything about the RSA card. The documentation kind of implied that that's not what's going to be the case. So hit F1 for setup. It's waiting to boot to setup. Does all its checks, the SCSI drives and everything. Smells a little gross. It's like sort of musty, unfortunately. The configuration setup utility, advanced setup. RSA II settings. That's promising. It already went out and found a IP address on my network. That's good. Anything here about resetting passwords? I do not see anything. This is good though. It's set to the static IP that it came with by default from the factory, so maybe it's not been messed with. Should be sitting at 10.0.0.101. Let's go see if my router can see that. Back over here. Yep. The router knows it handed out that address. Okay, so far so good. In a Windows XPVM on the same network, I can ping the RSA II. So, the documentation says the default password is user ID and password with a 0, all uppercase. So user ID, password. There's no way. It has not been messed with. Yes. I love the red IBM logo. I missed that. Continue. Getting some, graphical issues. So does this work when the server's off? Fans are only at 50%, and I obviously only have half of them. It doesn't seem too mad about that. We can see the temperature sensors. I didn't think I was going to get this far this easy. Some of them let you have a remote console, but it specifically said that doesn't work on this X346 in the documentation. Yeah, so server console redirection, which would have been nice. Not supported in my server for some reasons. Oh well. It apparently takes screenshots of the OS when it has a failure though. Yeah, there's like an application you install on your operating system that also can interact with this card, I think. So I don't know. I guess that's good. I'm glad it works. Not much to do with it. I have to imagine it stays online when the server is off. Server just turned off. Yeah. And we're still here. So that makes sense. Ooh, what's this? I can do a KVM session? How's that work? It doesn't work. What if I power the machine back on? Power on immediately. The object does not support this property or method. Single user SSI. Let's try Firefox. Yeah, this thing stinks. Looking forward to getting it out of here. Let's try this remote control KVM thing from Firefox. Yes. Allow pop-ups. That's further. That's getting further. Okay. Come on. I'm sure it's a bunch of Java funny business. Yep. Right on cue. Freezing up a little bit. Probably don't have the right version of Java on here. I'll just wait a while. Let it do its thing. I'm getting closer. I was able to accept this. We do have a fully remote console, and I can add a CD-ROM. I can't imagine how horrendous it would be to actually install it this way, but what am I looking at here? Oh, I can mount a disk image? What's it doing now? It's going to town trying to do something with those disks. It's not going to work. Should we try to install Windows Server 2003 this way? Now that I have this, and I also have a real KVM, I'm going to actually take this in the other room and get it set up, and we'll do everything remotely from here. Yeah, that's what's on the screen. The classic like IBM insert disk thing. Here's the game plan. Gonna get a copy of Windows Server 2003. We're gonna put that on the IBM X346. Then I found a copy of IBM Director version 5.20.2. This lets you have a host server that can manage other consoles. My server is going to be an HP DL380 Gen 3, I think that is, running Windows 2000. I'm having trouble determining if the host server can be running Windows 2000 and one of the agents can be 2003. but that's what I'm going to try. I just kind of go on vibes down here. That's what feels right. That's what feels fun right now to try. I've been reading the documentation, which is 996 pages, by the way. Oh, no way. And it was written by these dudes. There you go. This is the basic idea. There's three major components. There's the management server. That's going to be the HP machine running Windows 2000. And then on the IBM machine we were just messing with, I can install an agent, and I can also install a console on yet another machine, which lets me just access, I think, the management server and control and use everything. I don't think the console is necessarily required. Here's what it looks like to use the console. It's going to be good and bad and great all at the same time, I think, if I can get it working. They gave this very excellent example of running hundreds of servers and thousands of clients out of Copenhagen, Denmark, all the way to Greenland, Finland, Sweden, Norway. This thing can do anything. Here's the retro rack situation. I've got a bunch of room right here. I'm just going to literally slide it and rest it on top of this. This is on rails. This is on rails. I don't have a rail kit for the IBM X346. If I get it working with that IXA card and I sort of fall in love with it, I do have a spot right here under the HP above all the IBM gear. And that makes some sense. If it becomes a permanent fixture in this setup, that IXA card is only going to work with this machine running IBM I. So that could be pretty cool. Also, this is a Gen 2. Definitely not a Gen 3. I got that wrong earlier. I think the plan is we're going to put it right here. It's not the lightest thing in the world. I can say that much. Okay. What other cables am I messing with? Okay. I'm starting to like it. It would look even better right there. I'm going to get this all wired into power and the network and KVM. We do once again have to discuss the KVM situation. I should probably just trademark that phrase. I feel like I bring this up every time I put a server in there. So I've got this KVM, and it transfers mouse, keyboard, video over Cat5 cables. I've got exactly one cable plugged in right now, which means I can plug in one machine at the moment. And you do that with these. They're called server interface pods, or SIPs. That does not count for the ICAC. That is not an IBM thing, to the best of my knowledge. That's just what people call them. And this one happens to be USB mouse and keyboard, the Cat5 cable coming in, could be category whatever, and then VGA. I've got capacity for one server in there. I bought this thing a long time ago, and it's theoretically compatible with that Dell KVM. And it can take Cat5 coming in and turn it into multiple server interface pods. Last time I tried this, it must have been over a year ago, it just didn't work. So we're going to try it again. The KVM is hooked up to this monitor, and I have a mouse and keyboard in here, and obviously it doesn't see any servers because I don't have any SIPs plugged in. But this is how I can interact with both the HP machine running Windows 2000, which is going to be critical. We're definitely going to want to do that. And theoretically, I'll be able to interact with the X346 IBM machine. So I'm not going to film this because it's a pain in the ass to film in there, but I'm going to go take this in to the other room. I'm going to plug in my one cable coming out of the KVM. I'll try the HP machine first, power it on, and then if that works, I'll try the IBM machine. I have not had any luck with this thing so far. It's like passive, which is odd. I don't know, maybe it's not compatible with my KVM. And it came with a Cat5e cable, which is critical, because I am low on those. This one's good enough to go on the space shuttle, so what could go wrong? Well, it's sort of working. Turned on the DL380 Gen 2 and it sees it. Sometimes it takes a while for video output on that thing. I just turned it on like a minute ago. Looks a little something like this with everything plugged in. That yellow cable is coming from the KVM. And like I was saying, it knows it's plugged in, but it can't see it. Or I should say, there's no video output. I tried plugging the KVM directly into that server interface pod, and I'm getting the same problem. I guess I'll hook the IBM up with that Dell splitter thing. See if I have any better luck there. This is not good. This is bad. This is with the Dell splitter that I was showing you. It can see the X346 no problem. Here it is booting with a crappy resolution, but it cannot show me Any video output for the HP machine. Uh-oh. That machine is pretty integral to my plans here. You can see the IBM, no problem. Anyway, the splitter works. I figured it out. I just forgot how to use that server. So here's the output of the compact, and I can also see the output of the IBM, and it's in some sort of weird boot loop, which is fine. Disk failure or disk reset failed. I don't know what it's doing. We'll sort that out soon. Let's let this thing get into Windows 2000. So the story with that is it also has a remote management card, and it kind of hijacks the VGA. So you got to get the VGA of the KVM in there, and I had to go watch an old video to remind myself of that. Windows 2000 is booting. Okay, progress. We're back on track. With the KVM remotely in here, we can see the DL380 running Windows 2000. That's going to be our host server. And then we can hop over to the IBM X346. And it's just boot looping, trying to boot from those disks. Well, let's get Windows 2003 installed, I think. I wonder if, I'm imagining a Control-Alt-Delete will just, it'll just do nothing. That's fine. We'll figure that out. Control-Alt-Delete worked that time. I need to wait until the SCSI controller shows up, and we'll try to set up a RAID with those two disks. I think it's after this. It might be Control S. We'll see. Control A. See if we can get into the SCSI select. Don't really know what I'm looking at. There might be two SCSI controllers on here. Alright, this Adaptec is almost certainly the controller, but I wouldn't say it's a disk. Yeah, I know that. Maybe we can't RAID, hardware RAID anyway. Oh my gosh, host RAID? What's this mean? I'm gonna go look up what host RAID means. As expected, I believe that lets us do a hardware RAID. Yes, I would like to save changes made. Oh, new options. No available drive found. Well, we'll just throw Windows 2003 at it, see what it thinks. Got Windows Server 2003 on a disk here. While I was waiting for that to burn, Chloe and I made some bitchin' Philly cheesesteaks. Those are gone, but it gave me time to think. I was only looking at one of apparently two controllers on this thing, so if we go to this one, I turned on the host RAID. And if we go in there, it sees one of my 36 gig drives. Not entirely promising. But then if I get in here, I can see both of them, along with whatever this is, some other SCSI device. I guess I could format them both. This SCSI controller might be faster than what these drives are capable of. A 36 gig drive is pretty small, even by 0204 standards. I'm going to do a little research. The server supports Ultra 320 drives. The two drives I have in there are just like this. I think they're Ultra 160, so they're definitely slower. So IBM might have, based on some reading I've done, IBM might have done some funny business with this sled. But I do have this HP Ultra 320 drive. I'm going to take this out of its compact style sled and see if it fits in here. Poor girl had to watch me make Philly cheesesteak sandwiches. Couldn't have any. And she was locked out of here while I was eating them, because if she was in here, it would have been a pretty hard time for me. So now she's really curious about what's going on. Hasn't wanted to say anything all day until now. It sure seems like this HP drive is going to fit in this sled, no problem. So what I'm going to do is I'll power the machine off. Whoa. My bit went flying. I'll power the machine off, pull the other two drives out. I'll slap this one in and see if one of these RAID controllers can see it. I don't know if I said it. This one's 146 gigs, more than we need. Drive tray was dirty. I had to put it in the second bay. It physically wouldn't fit in the first one. The drive is almost like too tall, or its positioning in the tray is wrong. I don't know if that's a difference between these different SCSI iterations. I kind of doubt it. Sort of seems like some IBM funny business, but we'll be positive about IBM. Because I have the RSA II, I can remotely boot the machine back on from here. Let's see if it sees that drive, and then we'll install Windows Server 2003, hopefully. And it does see it. It's calling it a compact drive, because technically it probably is. HP bought Compaq around this time period, so even though it was HP branded on the outside, it was probably a Compaq produced part on the inside, and that's how the drive is reporting itself. I've got the Windows CD in there. I'm going to get out of this, and it's going to reboot, and I didn't check the boot order. Well, I might be able to specify that now. Let's see. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's going to give me an F12 for boot device. Yes. And I think I can do a one-time DVD-ROM boot. Guess I wasn't explaining myself very well back then about why I'm messing with these drives. So it would be kind of stupid to put a slower drive onto this faster SCSI controller. And the fact that it couldn't even see one of them, it's kind of like, screw it. Pull those old drives out, put a drive in that's hopefully the right speed and healthy. Little concerning that it still thinks there are 2 hard disks in there. There are not. We'll boot from CD. Well, that's quick, and that was promising. I think because it's Windows Server 2003, hopefully we don't have to deal with a bunch of RAID controller headaches, and it'll just be able to see the drive. We'll find out. The moment of truth. Will it see the hard drive? Setup did not find any hard disk drives. Classic early 2000s Windows experience. Let me get back into that RAID controller thing. Might have made a mistake. Got a little hasty. Decided to tell this thing to format the drive. And while this display is very impressive, I do not appreciate not having a progress indicator. It's like 30 minutes later, it's still going to town, but because we have the technology. Switch back to Windows 2000, and we'll at least get IBM Director installed on this thing tonight. And then if this guy isn't done after that, I will turn it off. I've got 20 of those drives. By hand, you saw me fix that power supply. I'm not going to bed with that thing running all night. Got IBM Director in the other machine. I have no idea why I started this format. I've been down this road before. I need to get the drivers either slipstreamed into the ISO or on a floppy disk that I can load in the installer. They're still on IBM's website. That was stupid. But here we are. I would like to install the server. I didn't know some chicks were going to be involved. I will do the express installation. Oh, jeez. Sure. All right, I'll bring you back when I can launch an application. It's done. Let's check on our format nightmare. Still a nightmare. Restart. Fine. Pain has only just begun. twgsrvw.exe failed to initialize. Hopefully that's not anything I care about. Our first look. Okay, this is fine. It's actually not, because yeah. The IBM Director server just started and is still initializing. That's a potential problem that might have caused this. I don't like this. Oh, and my machine froze. That's good. I'm not going to lie to you though. I didn't read all 996 pages of the instruction manual. Let's see how the other thing's going. I think it's bedtime. I'll see you tomorrow. Against my best judgment, I decided not to go to bed. But as you can see, I am logged in, and as I'm filming this thing is finding other machines on my network. And of course, Chloe kept me company. She's a pretty good buddy. When I installed this thing, I set the username to Clab Retro. This Windows 2000 machine is an Active Directory server, and there is a user called Clab Retro who logs in like that. I'm not even going to pretend to understand how all this works, because as you could see, it's pretty involved, but I'll show you what I did to fix it. So I fired up a terminal window and I did services.mcs, and in here you can see there are a bunch of IBM Director services. The server itself, which failed to launch, its logon as property was Clab Retro, and that apparently was no good. I couldn't log into it at all. So what I did was I got in here and I changed the logon to local system account. That's all I did. Then I restarted the machine. And after that change, this chick was like, yeah, I like it. DL380 Gen 2 is this machine, the host name. Also, I didn't get that error about that big, long, what turns out to be a Tivoli thing not starting. And down here we got the IBM Director server status. It's running, everything's running. And now I'm able to log in as administrator. Again, I'm not even going to pretend I understand how all that works because Active Directory is very confusing. And this IBM Director is clearly very tied in to the Active Directory on this machine. But eventually we log in and it starts showing us some machines. So this Clab XP, that is the Windows XP VM I've been using earlier in the video. Found it somehow. And then it also found the RSA II. Remember? That was 101. So yeah, it's reaching out over various protocols. Oh, there it is, yeah. Definitive proof. The remote supervisor adapter 2. Okay, so I think we have a server running. That's exciting. It's almost midnight and I'm almost 40. So we're gonna shut this thing down. For better or worse, I've got more drives if that thing gets hosed, and we'll fix it later. See you tomorrow for real this time. The machine gave me some mercy. Right as I was about to shut everything off, the format finished, so I was able to cleanly shut down the machine. And then I disabled that hardware RAID in the controllers, rebooted, and I think Windows 2003, Server 2003, can see the drive. It can! I inadvertently introduced two variables. The format may have made a difference, though I doubt it. I think it was turning off the hardware RAID. I did actually find the official setup disk for this server on the Internet Archive, and that theoretically has both the drivers you need if the hardware RAID's set up and when it's off, but apparently this Windows Server 2003 installer disk had enough drivers to start talking to my drive with the hardware RAID off. Well, let's do a quick format, that's fine. I'm going to cruise along, and I'll come back if anything interesting happens. Hopefully nothing interesting happens. I kept referring to that as hardware RAID. It's called host RAID. When it's off, you just get a JBOD, just a bunch of disks, and they get passed through, and obviously Windows can see them. And then when it's on, there is a RAID configuration that takes place on the controller somewhere. It's not really a dedicated controller from my research. Like, I think the system CPU is involved somehow, hence why you might want to upgrade to one of those ServerGuide cards. This is cruising along. It's always eerie to install Windows when you can't hear the machine. Something kind of weird about it. The computer thinks it's June 24th, 2045. That's ridiculous, even by my standards. Date's right, time's wrong, that's fine. I think this is going to be an issue because that Windows 2000 machine is going to be my domain controller, or my Active Directory server. It thinks it's 2001 for some reason, so I must have forgotten to replace the clock battery in that thing. Might bite us later. That was pretty painless. Let's see if we can log in for the first time. It did not like the password of my wife's name, all lowercase 123, but it did let me set that. I just complained about it. Oh yeah, we're not really done. IE6 nightmares. I don't know that I've ever used Windows Server 2003. We will not be needing any updates. Wow, when you close this page, inbound connections to this server will be allowed. That's okay, because it's not even on a network. Yeah, it's pretty similar to Windows 2000, I guess. Same idea anyway. Actually, I can't remember if this is plugged into the retro rack. Definitely not. I'm going to go put the IBM Director CD in this thing, and I'm also going to plug it into the network. I don't know if I need to attach this thing to the domain controller as properly administrated by that Windows 2000 machine. Speaking of, I should probably boot up the Windows 2000 machine. I wonder what my username and password is. I bet it's administrator. So here is the HP of roughly the same era's remote management. It's called Remote Insight Lights Out Edition. Virtual power button. Turn on. Yes, I can already see the KVM. Now that the server's powered on, we can see the KVM pod. SIP? I keep calling them pods. Server interface pod. I guess it's still okay to call it a pod. This is going to boot up. I'll go throw the IBM Director disk in the IBM and get it on the network, or at least plug the Ethernet port into the network. Windows 2000 machine is up. The IBM Director console is cooking. We have a problem though. We might need that driver disk yet. On the Windows Server 2003 machine, it knows there's two Ethernet ports, but it doesn't have the drivers for them. So I'm going to burn this bad boy to a disk. Plenty of other ways to do this, but you know, I'm in a physical media mood. Just feels right. While that's burning, I would like to formally apologize for constantly calling this poor Compaq DL380 Gen 2 an HP machine, though they did mess up and HP bought them. Back to the IBM machine, I am digging this KVM. Let's get the driver disk in there. You know the IBM ServerGuide is going to be Java compatible. We've had a shocking lack of acronyms the last like 30 minutes. This is pretty disappointing, IBM. That being said, this seems pretty sane, so let's get into network adapters. I wish I was installing the IBM Token Ring PCI adapters family. I'm guessing these are IBM Gigabit. Select one or more drivers. Oh no. This one, Windows 2003. I don't want to make a diskette Java. It's not gonna let me do it. Okay, I guess I'll go put a diskette in. You know what? I'm getting a sneaking suspicion that you're supposed to do this on a different server, get all the drivers you need on your diskette, and put it in the server you're standing up and installing. I guess this might still work, so I'll put this in, and I think it's going to put the Ethernet drivers, hopefully, on here. I sure hope that floppy drive actually works. Yeah, it is creating a diskette with the drivers I need. Hopefully. It says diskette not recognized. But if I cancel, it just gives up. So maybe we can find them on the disk itself. At this ridiculous path, these are Intel 1 gig NIC drivers. I'm not entirely sure I have 1 gig. I might have 10100, but I'm guessing it's going to be 1 gig. So what we're going to do, point device manager at that folder, and maybe didn't like it. There was another folder called E2. Doesn't like that either. I'm going to poke around in these driver folders a little more. I'm also going to look up exactly what this network interface card might be. In the device details, I'm seeing vendor underscore 14E4, which is Broadcom. I just looked that up. Windows 2003 came with a generic driver. But let's try have disk again. In the Broadcom folder, there is this thing. Ooh. Why did that work? Let's figure out which one it just added. Because it had a 5.7 in the name, I'm guessing it's this one. No, it doesn't like it. Well, I installed this one, the Gigabit integrated controller, which makes sense. There's multiple ports. And that crashed the operating system. So far so good. Let's get into setup. Maybe it'll tell us what exactly that thing is. Not useful. I've got planar Ethernet 1 and 2. This is weird. The ServerGuide is a bootable disk. I don't really think this is going to help us though. Oh, I accept. Give me an acronym. Is this how you're supposed to use this thing? Is my server supported? One problem might be that my server is not on the supported list here. Okay. Probably pretty cool if I had the right ServerGuide version. Found the right version. I'm going to burn it now. Chloe and I might go make some more steak sandwiches. My wife's out of town on a business trip, if you can't tell. I got the network adapter drivers installed. And if you're curious, the driver disk you need for this IBM X346 is called 90p2975.iso. It's pretty easy to find online. I've got a link light on in the back. For some reason, it stole the IP address of its own RSA II. Not sure what that's about, because that thing's also plugged in. Let's see if we can ping the Windows 2000 server. We can? Okay. I'll get the IBM Director disk in here. And so, let's see what kind of fresh hell awaits us trying to turn this thing into an IBM Director agent. I have not associated this thing with the domain controller, the Windows 2000 machine. Nothing like that. Might be required. We'll find out. It is complaining about the RSA. There were RSA drivers that I could install, which I haven't. That might be required. Maybe not. Yes, they have these like levels of control the director server can have over everything, which I of course didn't read about. Let's get that going. I am not going to encrypt, and it's not going to be secure. We're going easy mode, hopefully. Oh, come on. Haven't seen that before. Maybe that's a thing. This is TCP/IP. It is telling me, what to do. That's encouraging. It's asking me if I want to enable driver for TCP/IP. Oh, all adapters. I guess that's fine. Yeah, let's do, this is a very weird UI. Let's do all adapters, just in case. Chloe has decided it's time to play with Mr. Raccoon on the bench. Can't say she's ever done that before. Oh, nice one, Chloe. Oh, yeah. Oh, he's done for. The installer exited successfully. No indication, really, that anything's going on. Back over here, it used to know about the RSA card at the new machine's address. I'm going to delete that. Just thinking about it. I'm flying pretty blind here. Let's do a discover director agents. That did nothing. Oh, I just wasn't patient. There it is. What can I do with this thing? It at least knows about it. Knows it's running Windows Server 2003. Has a warning status. Ooh, look at this. Wow, I can see. Never mind, that didn't work. It's not really working. Oh, the warning status on the IBM 346 is literally that the other network interface card, which is not plugged into anything, is offline. So, okay. Can I see some information? Okay, I told it to collect inventory on this thing. So hopefully that's going to gather a bunch of data about the machine, and we'll be able to see it. And that's about the extent of my plans with this thing, just to see if I can get these two machines talking to each other. Okay, after collecting inventory, I can see memory, the memory modules and where they are. I can see the IDE CD-ROM, pretty much everything you would expect. The locale of Windows 2003 running on there. Let's look at storage. Yeah. I know it seems underwhelming, but this is actually pretty cool. And I think you could like perform things on this. Oh yeah, I can like shut the machine down from here. What's this? Not doing that. Remote session. Oh wow, I have given full control of that machine to this one. That should spit back 101. Yep, I am using that other machine. This is pretty sweet. File transfer, that could be useful. Oh, this is really cool. Yeah, let's try this. So we'll make a little test file. Hello. And I'm going to transfer that to the desktop of the other machine. Oh yeah. Yes. That is actually really cool. I'm kind of impressed. Well, there you have it. IBM Director 5.20. Let's see specifically what do we got here. From 2006. Works like a charm. That wasn't all that bad, all things considered. Well, that's IBM Director running on a Windows 2000 machine with an IBM X346 agent. That was pretty fun. I had a really good time messing around with this server, and the IBM Director stuff was way less of a headache than I thought it was going to be. But that's not why I bought this server. As I said before, I want to get an IXA card in there, and the only reason I was messing with the IBM Director is because I realized I didn't have enough IXA stuff to do that yet. The acronym count was a little disappointing in the end. If this had been an IBM I video, we would have had an integer overflow on the ICAC. So let me know what you thought about that. I will do it again if you liked it. I'm happy to report I just passed 75,000 subscribers. The dream of 100,000 in 2026 is still alive. So if you haven't already, please consider subscribing. Really keeps me motivated and helps the channel grow. I've also got a Patreon where I post behind the scenes type videos, including one on this IBM X346. And you also get access to the Serial Port Discord, where myself and a bunch of excellent folks talk all the time. That's going to do it for this one. I might hunt down a rail kit for this server. I really like how it looks in the rack. I have a spot for it near the IBM gear, and if I can get the IXA card working, it can be an integral piece of the IBM I Power IBM setup in there. I hope you had as much fun watching as I did messing with this stuff. I'll catch you in the next video.